we're weaker when we're all together because we're a big target. So we need to, like, we can go our own way.
Go your own way.
And also, in comparison with the brothers and the dad, you gotta keep them separated. Hey!
Did you really get 2 song references out of 1 sentence? Well done. Just in case you didn't know, I'm Brian.
And I'm Matthew.
And this is Road Trip Recap.
Spoilers up ahead, as today we are talking about the Shadow episode of Supernatural.
And we're also going to be taking a look at not Jin, but the Deva.
Buckle up and let's go. You mean...
Yeah, that!
Our episode today starts out in the, it's another fictional city, Chicago, Illinois. Oh, wait. Is that a real city? I've never heard of it. Anyways, nah.
It depends on the day, I think.
But we start out in Chicago, Illinois, as we have Meredith, walking down the street, and suddenly her music kind of like freaks out. She takes her headphones off and is getting creepy voices calling to her. So creepy shadow chases her home and just rips her heart out.
You'd think, because all of these things have been happening more in, like, rural areas or maybe when someone's home alone. Now, this is, like, right in the middle of the city that something's happening.
Well, we'll get a little bit more into that here in a bit.
Oh, goody.
So, we get to 1 week later. Sam and Dean come rolling into town. We see Sam. He has a newspaper about, second mysterious death, and so they decided to come in and investigate. They're posing as the alarm company for Meredith's apartment, and they get to go in and look at the apartment to see kind of what's going on there, and found out that everything was locked down except for Meredith. She was not locked down.
No, her heart certainly wasn't locked down.
No. And they ask if they can just have some time to take a look around to figure out what was wrong with the alarm system. And I think Sam uses that thing that I said never got used again.
Oh.
From, he's using a device, like, it didn't have the lasers going out, but I was like, it's another thing that I'm not familiar with. So maybe that device does show up one more time. I don't know.
But they've made some modifications to it.
That could be it.
Yeah.
Dean has his EMF meter and it's going off, and then he sees blood spots on the carpet and plays Connect the Dots, which, I mean, when you have just spots on a carpet, like, you can make whatever symbol you wanted to, really.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how he decided that they had to go in the order that they did.
Yeah, every time I've been, had to do the paint by numbers or connect the dots, there's always a number that lets me know,
Right.
I gotta go here.
Maybe, the spots were, that big. Maybe, that big, there was numbers by each of the spots.
Oh.
Again, I'm giving Supernatural the benefit of the doubt, because I'm sure there was some explanation for it somewhere.
That, or
Anyways.
maybe you've been doing it long enough as a hunter that you start to kind of get a feel for, all right, so you look at it and you start to get an idea of, this looks like this kind of a symbol, or maybe it looks like this. So.
Although it was a symbol they had never seen before. And
Well, way to blow that theory out of the water.
kind of never seen before, because when I saw it, what I wrote down on my notes just for a reference is I was like, I found out that Zorro did it.
Yep.
Which I found out later wasn't far off. And I was kind of proud of myself for, figuring it out early, even though I did.
You were half right.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we cut to them. They're at a bar, still trying to do research. Meredith worked at a bar, so they're trying to figure out if anything weird was going on. And so we get a little back and forth with Sam and Dean, because Dean was talking to the bartender. So I'm like, did you get anything? Find out anything useful aside from her phone number? Dude, come on, I'm a professional. Yeah. I got it. Come on, Dean, maybe you need to do some thinking with your upstairs brain.
Damn it, Han Solo.
Anyways, so Dean's going through how nothing was out of the ordinary. There was nothing suspicious or anything like that. So really the only useful information they got was the bartender's phone number. So around this point, Sam kind of gets up and walks off, and he's like, what's going on? And Sam walks over and he finds Meg. which we remember from her making that killer long-distance phone call from the last episode that she was in.
Yep.
Sam doesn't know that yet. So he goes over and is just like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? And he's making small talk and everything. And there was a part in there that always confused me when I first watched it. Because Sam asked her, oh, what happened to Callie? And she's like, oh, it didn't work out. I did meet something Michael Murray in a bar in LA. And Sam's like, who? She's like, oh, never mind. And I was always like, what is that a reference to? And so in my research trying to figure this out, I found out this is kind of one of Supernatural's first little winks at the audience of breaking the fourth wall, as it's a reference to Chad Michael Murray, who is an actor that played opposite Jared Padalecki in the Gilmore Girls and House of Wax, who is also apparently good friends with Jared.
Yeah.
And so, it's just a nod at the past of the actors. But really for the context of Supernatural as an episode, her line does it should confuse Sam. It makes absolutely no sense. Why does that matter? Anyways,
I met a famous person, and it's like, wait, what? And turns out it's someone he worked with.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
So, Dean shows up, and he's trying to be like, hey, what's going on? So he's, and they keep talking, dude, cover your mouth. Oh, hey, sorry, this is my brother Dean. She, basically throws somebody under the bus as she just brings up Sam's complaints from when they met up last time. So it's whatever. And then
sowing discord.
Right. And Sam is probing for information because he wants to know more, because as we find out, he's really suspicious about the fact that he met her in the middle of nowhere and then in some random bar in Chicago where 2 people mysteriously died. So he wants Dean to research Meg Masters from Andover, Massachusetts, because that's the information that he got. Find out if this is a real person. And, Dean's not convinced. He's just like, I think you just got a thing for her. Maybe you're doing too much thinking with your upstairs brain. And, there's a nice little back and forth with them where
one of the brotherly back and forth.
Right. Sam's like, can you just go and do some research, see if this is a real person? He was like, well, what are you going to do? He was like, I'm going to follow her. He's like, yeah you are. Or I'm going to watch her, something like that. So we get, Sam's kind of scoping out whatever, gets a call from Dean. He's like, sorry, this is a real person, which got me thinking, because as we get later on in the series, Meg is a reoccurring character, but she doesn't always possess the same body.
Yeah.
We find out later she's a demon. Spoilers on spoilers, whatever. And so...
Double spoilers.
She keeps the name from a real person that she possesses the first time. So there's potential that either she got lucky and chose to possess somebody that had the same name as her, or maybe demons just choose the name of the first person they possess and then keep that name as they continue on, unless they find somebody else more suitable to steal their identity or whatever. Because we find out with a lot of demons later on, the name that they go by is not their actual name.
Yeah.
Case in point, Fergus McLeod.
Yep. Crowley.
Yeah. So find out that Meg's a real person, and Sam's hanging out outside her apartment, hotel, motel, whatever. I don't know what kind of a building she's in, because she doesn't live there. She's just visiting, but it looks like an apartment. Anyways.
Maybe sublet an apartment for a week, or...
It was a very early Airbnb.
Or just straight up killed the previous occupant and is just now just chilling in their pad.
Or that. So Dean's still why don't you go up and invite her to a poetry reading or whatever you kids do. There's another back and forth. Sam bite me. He's like, no, bite her.
Bite her.
But not hard enough to leave marks or anything. And, Sam hangs up.
Click.
And then Sam notices that Meg's changing. and is enthralled with this and gets caught and tries to play it off, but he's busted. Meg leaves, and so he starts following her to see where she's going. He ends up noisily climbing up an elevator shaft to see where she went after she enters this building. Like, if you watch the scene, like, he's not quiet when he's climbing up. And if you're in an empty building, like, I'm sure that would echo. But again, benefit of the doubt. Well, also, we find out later, like, she knows.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he's not as sneaky as he thinks.
He rolled a 1 on his stealth check, so he thought he was being stealthy, but he was not being stealthy.
Oh, during the phone call with Dean, we also find out that what they're looking at is a deva, is what Dean says. And he finds out, or Dean's talking about how they're Zoroastrian, which is at the point I was like, oh, so it was Zorro. Interesting. And we do have Dean saying that deva means demon of darkness, which was a mistake because in Zoroastrian, deva translates more into like a false god or like wrong god, which I hear we'll get into more a little bit later. But anyways, so Sam climbs up and he's watching, and Meg's making another long distance call, and we see like the altar, like she leaves, Sam sees the altar, sees the sign, knows that she's the one that's controlling these deva. So after this, Sam goes back to the hotel, motel, Holiday Inn, whatever, and we get another moment of Sam and Dean, speaking at the same time, which some people really love. So, we got them coming in with their...
Dude, I gotta talk to you.
And we find out more information about, not just Sam revealing what he learned about Meg, but Dean found out that they missed a connection between the people that have died. And both people were originally from Lawrence, Kansas.
Ooh, hometown.
Right. So they're like, does this have to do with the thing that killed Mom? Like, what's going on? So Dean calls, Dad leaves a message. It was like, hey, we think we're onto something. Like, if you get this, like, get here. Sam and Dean load up, and they're gonna go and figure things out. During the part where they're getting ready for all this, Sam kind of reveals that he's ready for it to be over and done with and go back to normal life. And Dean, not so much. Like, he's not fond of the idea that Sam's just going to peace out right after this is over.
Yeah.
So we get back to Sam and Dean sneakily climbing up the elevator shaft, but they're not sneaky. They get there, and Meg's like, I know you're there. And also, shadow demons attack. So they get attacked by the shadows. They get tied up. And we find out that it was all a trap. Anyways, then we find out it's not a trap. It's bait for a bigger trap. So they're, well, not there.
It's a trap within a trap.
Right. Meg is luring Sam and Dean in to use them as bait to lure John in to trap him.
Yeah.
And
the one hunter that I think actually scares the ever-loving sweet crap out of all the other, like, you could throw a wrench in their plans. The demon's plans.
In this moment, yes.
In this moment, yes. Throughout the first season.
Right. At this point, Meg's kind of like getting over with Sam a little bit, like, hey, like, I saw you watch, or I knew you were watching me, and I enjoyed it, whatever. And then Dean's caught, he's trying to escape.
Yeah.
And turns out Dean was just a distraction because Sam's escaping. And he topples the altar, which releases the deva. They're not happy, so they throw Meg out a window. And she's never seen from again. Oh, wait, no, she walks that off.
Yeah, I was going to say, until next time?
Yeah. So they get out, they head back to their motel, and there's a mysterious shadowy figure in their motel. Also, there's 3 of them, but the first one is their dad.
Oh, okay, good.
So they reconnect, they're talking to their dad, but the other 2 mysterious shadowy figures are the deva, and they're attacking. And apparently they can be dispelled with flares, because Sam's like, they're shadow demons, so let's light them up. Supernatural cheating, I'm pretty sure, but I don't know, we'll find out, I guess, because
it's closer than you'd think, actually.
Oh, well, good on you.
Yeah. In Supernatural's own way, it's closer than you'd think.
We'll get there.
We'll get there, yeah.
So they leave the motel, and they're running away, and we see like Meg has like a medallion, and that's how she's still controlling the Deva, I guess, which are gonna be a big threat throughout the rest of the. Oh no! Wait, we never see them again, do we? Weird. Anyways, they're running away, and at this point, Dean's like, no, like we have to separate again. Like we're weaker when we're all together because we're a big target. So we need to, like, we can go our own way.
Go your own way.
And also, in comparison with the brothers and the dad, you gotta keep them separated. Hey!
Did you really get 2 song references out of 1 sentence? Well done. Well done.
I live my life through movie quotes and song lyrics. And so then, we get them driving off separate ways, and then Meg is there off in the distance, still just like watching and waiting.
Ominously.
Yes. And that's kind of where we leave off with this episode. So tell us about these Deva and the Zoroastrian. I keep wanting to say Zoroastrian, but it's Zoroastrian.
Zoroastrian, yeah. So Zoroastrian was essentially one of it predates Judeo-Christian ideals. So it is actually thought to be kind of the predecessor that led to Judaism, which would then lead to Christianity, which would then lead to Islam. And so it was one of the first ones that was monotheistic, which is that, there is one God. It's Aha, if I can pronounce this correctly. Ahura Mazda.
Oh, I thought it was just Aha. And they had to take on me.
Take on me. 3rd song reference in this episode.
I'm on a roll.
So, Ahura Mazda is the monotheistic god. He is the creator of the world, the one who has formed the world entirely, and was mainly worshipped by the Persian Empire during that time. And the Deva were essentially going to be the demons of that time. Now, Deva is going to does not translate to shadow. It does not translate to shadow monster. It translates to they who shall not be worshipped, or those who cannot be worshipped, or unclean gods, essentially.
False god, wrong
false
god.
gods, yeah.
Sure.
So it was actually thought on a more academic level that they were older gods that had been from civilizations that the Persians had been able to conquer. There's a quote by Xerxes the First, not that Xerxes, this Xerxes, and it says, "By the favor of Ahura Mazda, I destroyed that establishment of Devas, and I proclaimed, the Devas thou shalt not worship." Now, it could be looked as this is a spiritual ideal, where he is basically saying, my God has destroyed your gods, and we shall conquer, these evil forces. Or it could be also looked at it as a political ploy, as him saying that my God has destroyed your faith, my faith now usurps your faith, and you will now follow Zoroastrian rather than following maybe it's the old Scythian gods, or however you're looking at it. But either way, the gods themselves are essentially now evil forces.
Did you say Scythian?
It's Scythian?
I'm just hearing Scythian. I'm going to keep with that.
Oh.
The Sith have been overtaken by Zorro.
Cynthia, however it's pronounced. Struggling with the pronunciation on that, apparently.
That's fine. The Sith have been taken over by Zorro.
The Siths have been taken over by Zorro. Goody. You now just see Antonio Banderas with a lightsaber just... Okay. So you have these now what are basically considered the first demons, and I think they even in the episode referred to them as much more of like a primal demon, or like way more primal, which kind of makes sense considering, they predate what Meg would essentially have been.
Sure.
Or like if you were looking at maybe from like an evolutionary tree, they would almost be like
the Neanderthal.
Yeah, the Neanderthal to Meg's Homo sapien kind of a thing. And I mean, it kind of works for just the headcanon idea of it. Now, as for them being defeated by a flare, there's a couple different ways that you can actually battle Deva. Now, Deva really can't be killed. They're a force of nature. They're a force of spirituality, and they more represent intangible ideals such as uncleanliness, death, decay, things like that. So they are nighttime creatures. So they come out. The Deva are the strongest when they are at night. So it's actually discouraged to do certain things like eat dinner at night in Zoroastrian culture, because that's when they come out, and they're actually drawn to certain things. They're drawn to one of the interesting ones is that they're drawn to broken silence. So if you're eating and you're eating in silence, and then someone were to break that silence, that is an opportunity for the angel on your shoulder to be replaced for the Deva. And so if you're eating at night,
you need to shut the hell up.
Yeah, you need to shut up and stop talking, because that's going to be a moment where a Deva can enter the conversation, which could almost be seen as like, this is when gossip enters conversation, is when you're eating at dinner and you start gossiping about your neighbor, or you start talking smack to your brother or something like that. That could be seen as the Deva entering your life. Eventually the Deva do get driven away, essentially by the holy sunrise. So that burns away the Deva. They're not able to come out during the day, but then they can come back at night once the sun goes back down. You can keep them in check either through curses. So if you've got some sacred curses, or if you're using prayer, one of the other common ways to keep them in check was to actually live a life of fulfillment, where you are living a life of action, of good thoughts, of good prayers. That will actually keep Deva in check. So if they had, like Sam and Dean had talked less smack to each other, they would have been able to drive the demon away, or like forcefully yell about how good their day was. That might have been able to keep the Deva away. Now here's where Supernatural also gets it right. One of the other most common ways to keep a Deva at bay, and is an effective weapon against the Deva, is fire. So it's not necessarily light that was, by using the flare gun, maybe it wasn't the light that was driving it away, it was more the intense heat and essentially fire that was erupting from the end of the flare gun.
To be clear, that wasn't a flare gun.
It's just a flare, or just a road flare.
Yeah. It would have been much more dramatic.
Oh yeah, we basically recreate the Wendigo. And shooting the fire and then death.
I was just because they're inside a motel room. So. I mean, they were already coughing pretty good with the smoke from just the flare.
That's a good point. And so it's actually encouraged, because fire is such an effective weapon, it would be encouraged to keep a fire burning in the hearth of your home in order to protect your family and yourself from Deva trying to get into your house or invading the home. So if you decide that you really do want to gossip at dinner time, then make sure at least a hearth is lit, so then you can still help protect your family and help protect your home. But, so in a way it can almost be headcanonized that it wasn't the light from the flare that was necessarily driving the Deva away. It was more of the fire from the flare that was driving the Deva away in that respect. So yeah, they actually did a pretty good job with this one, other than, the actual definition of it. When it comes to...
You just got lucky.
When it comes to the appearance of the Deva, it really is very much... It's hard to pin down. In some stories, they are thought to be... they're incorporeal. They're more thoughts and ideas. If you have a negative thought, if you have a bad thought or an unclean thought, that's a Deva moving into your mind and whispering into your ear. Sometimes they're thought of to be as insects. They're thought to be maybe smoke or mist, kind of like, when we were talking about demons before, where demons are able to take those different various shapes.
Well, we see that a bit at the beginning of the episode, because when the Deva is hunting Meredith, it kind of like smokes through, like the shadow does anyways.
So it wouldn't be uncommon to see it maybe as portrayed as a shadow, or at least that's how Supernatural is going to take it. And
sure,
it's not wrong. It's just it's hard to pin down what people think Deva are supposed to look like.
Okay.
So they just kind of exist. So Supernatural actually did a pretty good job with the Deva on this one.
I feel overall, especially like early on, like they would do a lot of research into the actual mythology on things and try to keep it as close as they could.
Yeah.
And then I think later we see where they're trying to get more creative with things and stuff like that, but they still try to stick pretty close to it.
Yeah.
As long as, it works for the episode. Because I think some of the things on, like, how to stop entities or whatever, there's just either not a clear-cut way, or, like, the way just doesn't make sense, and so they have to, like, do something different to make it more action-y or whatever.
I kind of feel like we see that when we start introducing more gods to the series. Because there's not really, especially in places like Greek mythology and places like Buddhist mythology, like Hindu mythology, unless you're looking at the Norse gods and goddesses, there's not really a clear-cut way to kill a god. And so that's where they kind of suddenly go, we got to come up with something, especially when the later seasons when they, face off against Thor and Zeus and Odin and some of these, bigger gods.
Do they ever come across Thor?
They don't come across Thor that I know of.
They do fight Zeus, though.
They do fight Zeus. Odin. They don't fight Odin, but they meet Odin.
They don't really fight Zeus either.
No.
What's-his-toes fights Zeus.
Prometheus.
Yeah.
Then we've also got, who else? Ganesh comes into play at some point.
Same time as Odin, I believe.
Yeah, same time as Odin. Yeah, season 5, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I agree. I think there's a lot of research that does go into it, and then they kind of put their own spin on things here and there and try and make it their own. And then after a while, they kind of go like, okay, we need to start really like putting our stamp on this and like really making this our own. So yeah, that is the Deva in the Shadow episode. So which one do we have coming up next?
Next, I believe we're going to be looking at thought forms. Or the tulpa.
Oh, Hell House.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, also, Ghost Facers.
Not yet.
Well,
but
they're not quite the Ghost Facers yet. But
the origins of the Ghost Facers.
I just like those two as a team. They're hilarious, and that is one of my other favorite episodes coming from the season. I actually like a lot of the episodes in the first season. Are a lot of fun, except for Bloody Mary. Still don't like Bloody Mary.
It was an alright episode.
I'm not saying it was a bad episode. I'm saying I do not like Bloody Mary.
Fair enough. So, I guess that's it for now. So until next time, stay safe, buckle up, and
we got work to do.